You're live.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the entire Board of Education, welcome to Brentwood Board of Education special meeting Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020. On behalf of the superintendent and Ms. O'Connor and council, welcome. We have a couple of things to discuss tonight in exec session. Council is present. With that being said, I'm going to go right into opening the meeting. And with that being said, I need a motion to convene general session at 5:05.
Motion.
Motion by trustee Burgos. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Second.
Second by trustee Safiri. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Could I, all right, we'll do the pledge to the flag when we open the meeting. So I need a motion to recess general session and convene into executive session at 5:05 p.m. for the purpose of seeking legal advice from the board's attorney. Could I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Motion by trustee Felix. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by trustee Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. So to the community that's out there just chiming in, it really is expected that we will be out by 6:15. And we hope to see everybody then. With that being said, Ms. Cheng, if you could just let us know when we are out of public and in exec.
now.
Welcome back to the Brentwood community. And on behalf of everybody here, we want to apologize for running so late. I know that we were supposed to go out at 6:15. It's 6:55, and here we are. But I can promise you that we were doing everything that we could to represent the district as best as possible. So some things come up that take a little bit of longer time. So with that being said, I am going to ask everybody here to please stand for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. So our next item on the agenda, page 1, it's a special presentation. Superintendent Lochner is going to go into discussion about what it would be like for the district and the community if we did go into a yellow zone designation. So Lochner, it's all yours.
Oh, okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Superintendent Lochner. It's my pleasure to address you this evening. We are going to discuss what's called a micro cluster. I'm going to begin with 4 slides. And then, at the end of the 4 slides, I'll go in a little bit more detail about what will happen if, in fact, we do go into the yellow zone. So if I could ask Ms. O'Connor, could we start with the first slide? Okay, again, we're going to keep it like that, Stace? Okay, wonderful. Okay, so as I'm sure you know, and everybody seems to be dialed into what's happening, obviously, with the virus and the government, the governor and the Department of Health and what their strategies are. Well, they came out with this micro cluster strategy, and incorporated in that is a thing called school-based testing. It's a testing initiative. And what we're going to spend the next, I'd say about 20 minutes to a half an hour, I'll discuss what exactly will be taking place if, in fact, we do go into the yellow zone. But before I begin with that, why don't I begin to explain what exactly is a microcluster? So a microcluster, as you can read here, it's targeted areas. In other words, right now, we are in Suffolk County, obviously, and then we have Suffolk County and Nassau County. Those 2 counties actually make up what's called a tier 1. And again, this is all designed around the pandemic. So rather than just focus on these large geographical areas like Suffolk County and Nassau County, the governor and the Department of Health came up with this new strategy. It's a couple of months old now, but it's called a microcluster. And it's targeted areas where specific data is used to pinpoint the epicenter of viral outbreaks in neighborhoods and smaller areas. Again, taking the county and then moving it down to towns, and then actually even looking into a finer area. It might not even be an entire town. It might be a very localized area. Now, there are some towns, like let's say Riverhead, that's on the east end, that has multiple zip codes. So you might even have, a town that has 2 or 3 zip codes, but the microcluster is actually narrowed in on a much smaller area. So the metrics used, and I know a lot of people take a look at Newsday every day, and it can be quite confusing that you take a look and you'll see that Suffolk County is well over 3% for a fairly long time. For the last few weeks, it's been about 3.2, 3.5. And you might take a look and say, well, the governor said that if we went over 2.5 for 10 days, then you actually move into the yellow zone. Well, it's not as simple as that. They actually have a metric system that is quite, complicated and really not easy. It's a very complicated algorithm to determine who's in a yellow zone, orange zone, or a red zone. And some of the areas that I highlighted here, it's obviously the number of tests that take place in that particular area, how many test positive and negative, but they take a look at the number of tests in relationship to the population density. Then they also take a look at the hospitalizations. So although the number of identified positives might seem quite large, they also factor in the hospitalizations in comparison to, again, to that population density of that particular area. And then they obviously are still looking at the geography and the population density. And again, comparing that to the numbers. Again, it's a very complicated, algorithm. And then the epidemiology, excuse me, it's a study of the pattern of how the virus is spreading in the population. So what they're doing there is, again, they're taking a look and they're analyzing how exactly is the virus spreading in a particular area through a particular population. Those metrics, as well as other metrics, are thrown into the whole system to determine who is in a yellow, orange, and a red zone. So what we have here is obviously just a quick little, just a small definition of each particular zone. So what you see here is you'll begin with the red zone, and that's called the microcluster. That's a very large area. And probably everyone has heard that the city has certain red zone areas within the city. And if you remember, a few months back when they really were identifying these zones, they were targeting certain areas in the city that were red zones. And red zones obviously are really, that's where the percentage of positives is extremely high in a very small area. And what the governor and the Department of Health said is that's considered a red zone. And there's lots of requirements, not just for schools, but as for businesses as well, if you happen to fall into a red zone. The next is called the orange zone. And that's called the warning and the buffer. And basically that zone is created to buffer around a red zone. So typically what you've seen in the urban areas is that there'll be a red zone identified in a zip code, let's say in Manhattan, and then around that, there'll be other neighborhoods that will be considered orange zones. And again, the school systems in the orange zones, they have a whole nother, set of things that they have to follow in terms of testing their students and staff. Then what we have is the first zone, and that's actually down below there. That's called the precautionary buffer zone. And that's the yellow zone. And that's put in place as a broader buffer zone to ensure, again, the outbreak is not spreading. So what they'll do is they'll look at this microcluster yellow zone area. They'll identify what area may be entering a yellow zone, and then they'll start saying, well, let's put our resources there, and hopefully through constant testing and obviously monitoring, then that doesn't spread out into an orange or even a red zone. Now, I should begin this part of my talk by saying that we are not in the yellow zone, okay? Brentwood School District right now is not in a yellow zone, and I talk to the Department of Health every day. We're actually not even near the yellow zone at this point. That's not to say that we won't be in the yellow zone in the near future, but I want to assure the community that at this particular moment in time, we are not in the yellow zone, okay? However, what we're doing here and what my administration and along with the Board of Education, who's obviously overseeing this, we are actually preparing for the possibility of going into the yellow zone. And I just have some things here, and then I'll go on to explain exactly how we're going to go about this. But if a school district falls into the yellow zone, there are some requirements that kick into place. And the first one is that the school district, they must test 20% of in-person student and staff over a 2-week period. Now for us, obviously a school district this large, really the largest one on Long Island, one of the largest, if not the largest in New York State, we have a tremendous, that's a tremendous undertaking. However, it does say in person. So when we factor out all of the students that have chosen fully remote, we're probably looking at about between 3,000 and 3,500 tests will have to be administered over that 2-week period. Now, here's what happens. You do this test, and I'll explain the test in a moment. If the percentage after that 2-week period is lower than the surrounding area, in this case, let's take Suffolk County as the surrounding area, which probably right now is about 3.5%. If we test, let's say 3,000 people, and the percentage is lower than that 3.5%, we no longer have to test. If the percentage is higher than the surrounding area, again, 3.5%, then we must continue to test students and staff. Now, I will tell you that there are many school districts across New York State who have actually undergone this testing. And it's quite a few districts upstate. We recently had Riverhead and Hampton Bays out east, and they have all ended up being less than 1%. Quite frequently, it hovers around 0.5%. So I'm confident that if we do enter into the yellow zone and we undertake this 20% testing of students and staff, I'm confident that we will end up lower than the surrounding area, which is probably about 3.5%. Okay, so Stacy, I think that's that part. All right, now let me explain exactly what will happen. That was just a quick little primer on microclusters and what the expectation is if we move to a yellow zone. So I wanted to let the school community know that we obviously were aware of this possibility, and we started a few weeks back putting together a yellow zone COVID testing team that I've been working with really almost on a daily basis. And I want to tell you exactly what is going to happen if, in fact, we ever go into the yellow zone. The first thing is, let me tell you that the test that we will be given, it's called the Binex Now COVID-19 Rapid Test. And it is a test that really is just swabbing the front of the nostril, the very front of the nostril. You go around 5 times on the right nostril, then 5 times on the left nostril. Then you introduce a reagent, and within 15 minutes, you'll actually have a result. It's actually a visual inspection of a card, and after the reagent is put onto that Q-tip, an RN, a nurse, will look at that within 15 minutes and determine if the test is positive or negative. Now, that's a little bit about the test. What we're going to do is, in the next few days, we're going to send out a survey to all of the parents. It's actually a very quick and easy survey. And what we're going to ask is if you would volunteer, obviously your sons and daughters, if you would give permission for us to administer the rapid test here at school. I'm going to send out a survey. You're going to simply say yes or no. And then if you say yes, if you just, obviously there'll be an electronic signature, you submit that to us and we know that you give us the permission to test your son or daughter. Now, again, we're looking for 20% of the district, and typically the school districts that have already done this, they usually get between the staff and the students anywhere from 60 to 80% of the staff and students sign up to take this rapid test. Now, there is no cost to anyone, whether you're a student or a staff member. It does not go through your insurance. It actually is, the rapid tests are delivered to the Department of Health by the governor. He's committed to getting these rapid tests to all of the Department of Health in the different counties, and then the Department of Health in those counties actually give them to the school districts. So we've actually already made an application in anticipation of potentially being in the yellow zone. And we do hope within the next few days to have about 4,000 of these rapid tests in the district. So after we survey the school community, and you say yes, that we can test your son or daughter, they will be put into a pool, because it is supposed to be a random selection from that pool. And again, it's staff and students, and there's no particular percentage. It doesn't have to be half students, half staff. It's just 20% of your population, your in-person population. There's no specific percentage. That's number one. Number two is it's an asymptomatic surveillance. That's what this is. Anybody who is in school should be asymptomatic. Obviously, you're filling out that questionnaire. If you're a staff member, we're obviously taking temperatures of students prior to them entering the school building. We are obviously asking parents to keep their child home if in fact they do have any of the symptoms. You've seen many of my letters and heard my announcements. That hopefully is doing. That's what you're doing. But this test is for an asymptomatic surveillance. So everyone who takes this test is in person and should, again, be asymptomatic. And what they're doing is they're testing this population to see if, in fact, any of the asymptomatic people test positive. Now, if it's negative, obviously we conduct the test. In 15 minutes, we'll know if it's negative, and that's called a presumptive negative, and that's, again, what we have to presume that it is negative. If it's positive, then obviously that student will be, obviously we'll have to call home, be sent home, and we'll tell you that you should see your doctor at that point. Take your son or daughter to the doctor, and they'll administer the PCR test, which is obviously a little bit more invasive, that test. I'm sure everybody's familiar with that one. And then obviously your doctor will tell you, give you that second test and tell you if it is a positive. So what will happen is after if we go into the yellow zone, we don't know if we will, but if we do, we'll have this pool of people to randomly select from. And what we anticipate doing is having teams of people, and it will be made up of clericals, health monitors, and our nurses, who will go to different buildings, and we will set up areas in the gymnasium. And we have a whole flow chart of how people will go through the process. You'll obviously come in, we'll ask you some questions, obviously some of those health questions that you're very familiar with. We'll get your information, again, whether you're, a sixth grader, seventh grader, all we're asking for is the name, birth date, obviously, that's the information that the Department of Health needs. We'll administer the test. It's, as I said, it's very non-invasive, and I hope parents, if you choose to have your son or daughter take it, and again, there's no pressure. It's completely up to the parents and the students, obviously. But we do hope if you do say yes, and I would like to have my son or daughter have the test administered, please go over with them the night before. We certainly will that day. How it's non-invasive, nothing to be afraid of. You just can, it's literally about 5 to 10 seconds as they just rub each nostril. So it's very, very quick, very easy. So after, again, that test is taken, we will take that student or staff member and sit them in a waiting area as they await their results. Once they get their results, if it's negative, again, it's a presumptive negative. We will do a little bit of an education. There'll be a pamphlet. We'll go over, obviously, all of the things that you've heard, wearing the mask, the washing of the hands, keeping socially distant. There'll be a little bit of an education. And if it's a student, we'll expect the student, obviously, to return to class. If that student tests positive, then again, as I said, they'll be brought into an isolation room. We'll call mom and dad. They'll come up. And obviously, we'd encourage you then to go to your doctor. Staff member would work pretty much the same way. that they would come in, they would do the necessary, they'd stop at the first place, put their names in, obviously sign a consent. We'd get them at the second station. We'd get all of their pertinent information. We would do the test. A nurse would read the result of the test. And again, if a staff member is positive, we'd ask the staff member to return to work. If not, then the same thing would kick in. We'd obviously tell the staff member if it's positive, he or she is positive, that they would obviously immediately go home and see their doctor at that point. So it's really, you know, it's a very simple process in one hand, but kind of a complicated process for us in that it is a incredibly large number in a short period of time. You know, Hampton Bays, for example, they did it 2 weeks ago. They had to test 400 people, which they did quite successfully, and they ended up with less than 1% positive. But 400 people compared to, you know, 3,000 to 3,500. The reason I don't know the exact amount is this, and I don't know if I touched on this earlier, but there is a possibility, because again, this is about micro clusters. There is a possibility that not every school in the district is in this micro cluster. It could quite possibly, and I'm just saying this for illustration, that it could quite possibly be the west side of town, let's say, is the micro cluster area that the Department of Health has identified. And that would just be Hemlock, West, and Southwest, for example. Then, quite frankly, we would only have to test 20% of those 3 schools in-person staff and students. So it would be much smaller. So that's why I can't give you a specific number at this point, because again, it could be all of the schools, it could be some of the schools. But I do want to tell you that to this point, and you know, I just wanted to spend a moment to talk about what we've done up to this point. I am going to give you a number, and it sounds actually quite large, but I want you to consider you know, the size of our population with students and staff. It's well over 21,000. It's probably about 22,500 people. We've had, since the beginning of the year, we've had 127 positive cases in the school district. Now, that 127 positive cases since September, actually, if you look at the positivity rate, it's about 0.56% since the beginning of the school year. And the reason I point that out is because I want to say that we've actually, I think, done an outstanding job in terms of keeping everyone safe. I think our students and our staff members have done a tremendous job in insisting that they wear masks every day. We're obviously keeping the density in the buildings as low as possible. There's social distancing. We're very careful in the cafeterias, particularly on the secondary level. So I think we've done an extraordinary job in terms of keeping our kids and staff members safe here in school. There is a thing called a community spread. Now, unfortunately, you know, and a community spread, what's referred to as a community spread by the Department of Health, that actually refers to the spread in even families, parties, get-togethers out there in the community. Obviously, there is, that's where the spread is taking place. We are taking tremendous precautions here in school. But I'm not going to, really not tell you the complete truth. Obviously, 127, I wish it wasn't. But I do think that's a very low number. I wish it wasn't that high. But it has put a strain on our schools, obviously. When you have a positive case, frequently it does result in the quarantining of other people. And that's out of an overabundance of caution. To date, I am not aware of anybody who has been isolated. In other words, they had the virus, and anybody who came in contact with them. To this point, I don't believe we've seen any spread within the school, which means we've been effective in quarantining the correct people. And I'm very proud of our team that actually takes care of that on a daily basis, our contact tracers and our nurses. I also want to make a particular thanks to our nurses who I've met with, and obviously I think the world of. They have actually have stepped up. They said they would be part of our testing team, and I'm quite proud of that. And we're going to ask other people who will also help us out in terms of administering the test, but the nurses must be there to read the results of the test. You have to have a nurse read the results. But other people, EMTs or other health specialists, can administer the test. So let me just take a look at my notes here to see if I've hit everything. I don't want to miss anything.
In the meantime, while you're looking at your notes, Ms. Lochner, I just wanted to, before we go into questions from the community, are there any questions from board members? Does anybody have any questions for what Mr. Lochner has gone over from this point forward?
I have a question that was sent to me. I don't know if you're ready for that.
Yeah, I have those community questions, Cindy.
No, this is, you don't have this one.
Oh, wait, I
okay.
have one. Cindy, I have one. I'm sorry, is it from a community member? 'Cause
I'll tell you the truth, I have no idea.
I just have one question for Mr. Lochner, based on what you just said about who will administer the test.
Mhm.
Do we have EMTs within the district or people other than nurses who
Yes.
can administer that test?
Yeah, we do. We actually have quite a few EMTs in the security staff. We also have, other EMTs that work in the district. I've also reached out to Brentwood Ambulance and the Brentwood Fire Department, and I hope to maybe, elicit some volunteers from there. But again, we have a staff that I think is ready and willing to step up. I've talked to Miss O'Connor, who's actually part of the team that we assembled, and I'd like to run a trial next week. Putting together a team, again, from the beginning, station one, where someone enters the gymnasium, puts in their application or fills out a consent form, and travels along to take the test, to the reading of the test, till actually they exit the gymnasium. And I want to time that for a certain amount of people to see exactly how long we'll need to take the test and to administer it to that many people. Now what we anticipate doing is having teams of four teams, I should say, possibly a fifth team if that's needed. And again, that's a combination of clericals, the EMT or nurse that's administering the test, and then the RN that's reading the test, and then a clerical that has to put information. I should tell you this because it's really something else, this whole process. We have to put in the results of these tests that we're giving within 2 hours of the test that's being given. So if we give you a test at 10 o'clock in the morning, by 12 o'clock, that has to be put into a database for that's connected to the state database. So it has to be a quick turnaround. Now, I do anticipate having this open from 7 in the morning. So staff members who choose to do this, they actually can maybe take it before school. And again, we'll keep it open, these teams open until, an hour to 2 hours after school has closed, again, to take, to possibly administer the test to, again, staff members who might want to take it.
Are those four
Right,
teams
like,
working at the
two-
same time? I'm sorry again, Cindy. Are
No,
the
it's all
four
right.
teams working on the same day at the same time, or are you rotating them?
No, that's a great question. What we plan on doing is putting 2 teams into one building and 2 teams into another building. So we hope to run it that way.
Thank you.
Mr. Lochner, will those people doing the testing, will they have proper PPE equipment?
Also, a great question, Ms. Moore. Yeah, as a matter of fact, we had our nurses and other people today. They were fitted with what's called fitted N95 masks.
Mhm.
So yes, the person who's administering the test will have, they call it a bunny suit. They will have a full bunny suit on. They will have their mask, and they will have their face masks and gloves. So they will be completely protected as they administer, as again, they take the nostril swab. So yes, that's a good question. We will have them completely protected.
Thank
Oh,
you.
and a face shield as well.
Let me
shield
read
as
you
well.
this question, Rich. It says, what if the people selected were already COVID positive and they are chosen randomly? That will slight our results because they will obviously test negative. Also, who will be conducting the test? Heard they may look for volunteers to watch a video to conduct the test in schools.
Okay, there was a lot there, Cindy.
Yeah.
First, again, we are going to ask for volunteers to conduct the test here in the school district. And as I mentioned earlier, I would like to go out to the community to see if there are any EMTs. The reason I love Brentwood Ambulance and the Brentwood Fire Department, as you guys all know very well, that it's staffed with mostly Brentwood graduates. I mean, every time I go to the fire department, they're all, Brentwood kids. So, and I love seeing them. And obviously they're all EMT certified. We have, like I said, several of our security staff are certified. In other parts of the state, I should tell you that anybody can get certified to administer the test. And as a matter of fact, even in some places, they were allowing self-administering of the test. In other words, I guess you're being supervised, but you just actually do the nasal swab 5 times around one nostril, 5 times around another. You hand it to the nurse, and then the nurse takes it from there. So yes, we are asking for volunteers. They do have to get certified. And the way they do get certified is, yes, they do look at a training video. It's quite simple from what I understand, but they are going to be, trained via, virtually, like everything is being done at this point. But understand they'll also be supervised by our nurse practitioners, who are really outstanding people, who have also been part of this process. And they'll oversee, the training and the administration of the tests.
All right, my first question.
We have another one.
What if people selected were already COVID positive and they are chosen randomly? That will slight our results because they will obviously test negative.
Yeah, actually, that's a really outstanding question. I never, I haven't considered that. I'm not sure of the answer. I will tell you this, that if you're in school and you're asymptomatic, which you should be, then I think you take the test. I'm not, I'd have to really find out if the Department of Health has issued any guidance on that particular permutation. But I think that really wouldn't skew our results, Cindy. I think that number is so low that I'm not so sure that we'd even.
That's a
randomly
community
select
question.
them.
So you're telling the whole community, whoever sent it to me.
Close to, I mean, what would prevent, having one of the questions be, have you been COVID positive? I mean, that's certainly something that could be a part of the questionnaire that
Sure.
would allow for that, that percentage, very tiny percentage, I agree with you, to be, part of the equation. So,
But
Right.
wouldn't it have to be within a certain time period? You could have been COVID positive in June. Doesn't
Mhm.
mean you're COVID positive now.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
most of questionnaires are COVID positive within the past 14 days or
Right.
something along that line. Right? And that doesn't
Yeah,
mean that if you were positive 14 days ago, you're positive today. when
Yeah,
you
there's
take the
lots
test.
there's lots of material on that. I've read as well, Julie, that there's no guarantee that if you've had COVID once that you wouldn't have it again. Although obviously they do talk about antibodies. However, it's an
Guarantee.
interesting, intellectual question. We certainly can find out the answer. I haven't heard that one yet, so that's actually an interesting one for me to look
And you
I
have
have
the
a nurse
questions from the
question.
community,
Oh.
right? No,
No,
sorry,
wait,
Julie.
I have another question, Cindy. I'm sorry, before we go on. I just want to clarify, if we're pulling nurses to supervise or read the results of these tests, do we have enough coverage for the buildings that we are pulling these nurses out of?
Yeah, and actually, that's a great question also, Julie, and I appreciate that. And you'll be happy to know the nurses obviously asked me that same question many times. Their first priority, as they'll tell me, and tell anybody their first priority is always their students and
Their
staff
buildings.
members in their particular buildings. So yes, we do not plan on pulling anybody from their building. We actually have more than enough nurses. You know, we have quite a few subs, and the subs are what we're planning on using. However, you know, as I mentioned, that we are going to we're going to open up early and we're going to keep it open late, because I have heard from many staff members that they would, quite honestly, probably lots of students would feel the same way. There's a real comfort level with our nurses in the building. So there's you know, they become familiar with the nurse, they're comfortable with the nurse, and I think they would feel a lot more confident about the process if their school nurse was part of the process. So they'll probably be part of maybe the early administration and then the late administration, but we have no intention of leaving our buildings unsupervised by a nurse.
So you mentioned that the 20% that you would have to test randomly. Is that just the hybrid, 20% of the hybrid students that we have, or 20% of the whole student body?
Yeah, that's another good question. I'm not sure if I said that to be or was clear. It's not the remote students. It's only the in-person students. So another question.
So it's 20% of the hybrid kids.
Exactly, 20% of the hybrid and staff members. You know, remember, we have approximately 3,000 staff members that work here. They would be part of the pool if they so choose to be part of the pool of applicants. And we will not test more than the 20%. So let's say it's 3,150. That happens to be when we begin testing, that happens to be the number. That's what the Department of Health wants you to test. They don't want you to test more. They don't want you to test less. They want exactly 20%.
Any other questions from board members?
No, you have the community questions,
Yep,
right?
Yep, so I was going to go, if there aren't any questions from board members, I was going to try to summarize some of the questions that we had gotten from the community. Mr. Loshino, what happens, and I don't know if you've already covered it, what happens if we can't get to the 20% in terms of the volunteers that we need to meet that goal?
Yeah, I mean, I know that's a question. I saw that asked. From what I understand, that there really has not been a problem getting volunteers in all of the school districts across New York State. I do want to reiterate, the test is free. It's non-invasive. It's 15 minutes. You actually get the results. It does not bill your insurance. It doesn't want to know. You don't have to submit an insurance card. You don't have to have insurance because it's not going through insurance. So again, it's a completely personal decision whether you want to go through this or not. But I'm hoping that a lot of people see the need to, or the validity in taking this test. It's free. You don't have to wait online. Obviously, right now, if we drive by City MD during the day, we see it around the block.
Crazy.
And this obviously is here. It's free. You'll get results. You should feel good about it. I know some of the questions might be about is it a false positive or false negative? Again, we're testing asymptomatic people. Okay, everybody here in school should be asymptomatic. We take the test. If it's negative, you'll be given some training by the nurses. But again, they'll probably tell the student or staff member that if you do tomorrow or later that day, you have some type of symptoms, then they would still encourage you to go to your doctor and get the PCR test, which is obviously the much more invasive test. However, this is not, I should also tell you, this Binex now COVID-19 test is actually not the one off the shelf. This was, this is a high-end rapid test. I think the false negatives or the false positives, the percentage of those are very low compared to other rapid tests. So I'm not saying that's 100%, foolproof, but I am saying from what I understand, it is a very high-end rapid test.
Great. Solution. So there's another one that I want to. So the question is, if a parent does volunteer their child for testing, will the parent be allowed to be present? And I just want to just try to answer that. I couldn't imagine that we would want extra people in our buildings. So I think that that would probably go along with this whole idea of even during the test, we would do everything to make sure that we were socially distant. We would minimize the amount of people that would be coming to this
Right.
building. Could you expand on that, Ms. Lotion, at all?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, unfortunately, you know, we've had to restrict visitors. You know, it's one of the things that that pains us is that we've had to restrict visitors to the building. So we really couldn't have, if a parent wanted to be, you know, there while their son or daughter is being tested, we really would have to say no to that. As you can imagine, if that was the case for all, let's say, few thousand kids, we would have a mom or dad up with them. That would pose quite a bit of structural problems for us. Listen, though, but you know, if there is some really high need, you know, certainly you can you know, give me a call. But generally speaking, no, we could not allow that to happen.
Ms.
Mr.
Lotion, what-
Olson, I have a question. This test that you're talking about isn't as invasive as the other tests that are given.
Yes, and I
So-
can't, yeah, I can't stress that enough, Ms. Moore.
Yeah,
It is not, I've had both.
yeah.
And that the other PCR test, that is the one where you feel like that it's going up into your brain.
Yes.
It's not the one. Now, that one, if we were administering that, I don't think we'd get the 20%. Okay. But
Yeah.
this one is a very easy one. It's I can't do it. I've seen other people talk about, you know, your nose and what you can. It's nothing. It's right here in the front of your nose, and 5 times around and 5 times here. I've actually taken that too when I've had to go to the doctors, and it is. I've actually administered it myself, like I said, and put it on a card, and they introduced the reagent and read it in just a few minutes.
They actually have a COVID test in it that where they swab your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I've
what they're
heard
doing at Stony Brook to all their
Fathers
workers.
had that, yeah.
Yes,
Rich,
Stony
will it be too much trouble to have like a demo or a demonstration video of it actually being done? I mean,
That's
before I
actually-
sign this consent, you know, I would like to see that.
I think that's a great, you know, it's
That's a
actually
good
one of my ideas. I was going to be the first person to get the test. So sometime early next week, I will have it administered. I don't know if you really want to watch this, but yes, you'll see me get the test, and we'll put it up on a video.
I mean, the reason I ask is because I have seen my child getting it done at the doctor's office, and I just wanted to know,
Sure.
you know, in regards to, okay, well, how deep are you going, you know?
Right.
Because I
Yes.
think parents would like to know.
Yeah, and I do. I'm making a joke about it, but I really do need the parents, you know, to understand that it is really a non-invasive. It is in the front. I'm going to say it like the other people. They talk about it like picking your nose, which I hate that expression here, but that's really what they say. It's just right there, very slight and easy. But I do
Okay.
need parents
So can,
to you know, spend some time, and we're also going to send out some other literature too about the test. But I do need you to, if your kids are a little uncomfortable, but you want them to take the test.
I'm sure all these kids Googled it already.
Yeah, it's very, you know, easy, non-invasive, but please, you know, spend some time with your child to let them know that it's an important test to take if they so choose. And it's not invasive. It's over in just a few seconds, but it does give us some information that would be important.
you know, to Maria's point, I'm going to suggest that maybe the video be a child volunteer who's going to actually provide testimony. Hey, listen, it wasn't as bad. It wasn't as bad as I thought, you know, so I'm sure that there are a lot of courageous young
I'm sure
children
there
out
are.
there who are going to swear that it was, you know, great. And maybe, I don't know, are there lollipops at the end of the test? What's the treat at the end of all of this?
Stickers, no sweet
Or
stickers.
something?
But it's funny
Mr. Lu-
because when I went to the doctor's office with my son, and when he did test negative, the doctor said, "Well, this negative is just for today. It's not negative for tomorrow, or the next day.
It's always
just
the case,
for one
so.
day," which is
Right.
you know.
It's a great point. It's a great
Yeah,
point.
Ms.
Yeah.
Lucia, so
it's
if I can summarize the next one, and I know that you're still working on it, but I guess there's a concern about what if we don't get enough volunteers to administer the test. I know that you're going to put this together. You have every confidence that you're going to be able to assemble these teams. I'm sure that, you know, if it is a problem, you will get back to us on this, of course.
Yeah, no, yes, Ms. Feliciano, if it is a problem, I'll have to go back out to the community and ask, you know, a second time for volunteers. You know, it really is. The alternative, quite frankly, is that I guess you'd have to go remote. And we certainly, you know, we're doing everything possible to keep fully remote. That is, we are doing everything possible to keep our schools open and trying to work together on this. And you know what, I think the Brentwood community does a tremendous job pulling together, particularly in times like this. So I'm hoping we don't have an issue with the 20%. If we do, I don't think I've done my job well enough to tell you that it really is a quick, painless test. And, you know, but if I have to do it again, we'll certainly go out. I do want to let you know too, that we are going to do this presentation again in Spanish. Miss Ortiz, I know a few people are working on it. They've actually already translated just the 4 slides, the introductory slides that I presented, but we'll also do another presentation in Spanish and going over that as well. This obviously is going to be recorded and will be online, and you can certainly view it. But there'll be another presentation in Spanish for
Do you have any concerns about assembling the teams? I think the question was a little confusing.
Okay.
So we have two issues: getting 20% of the population, but then we also have to assemble the teams to test that 20%. I don't think that, you know, from what you're saying, you're going to have a problem assembling the teams to test that 20%. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, we're really not. You know, as I said, we've met with the nurses, and you know, they're on board because you do have to have an RN read it. We do have lots of volunteers in terms of actually administering the test. Okay? That could be an EMT or a nurse or someone else who has been trained. And then in terms of the other positions, you know, what I want from them is obviously warm, welcoming people who will welcome either the student and staff into the gym. We have lots of people across the district and our clerical staff, et cetera, that are terrific at that will welcome them in. If I can even use some health monitors, I'd love to see them involved in this process because they've been also an outstanding part of our health community. And then, you know, we have to have another clerical at the end who actually has to input all of that data. And I've already reached out to a few that will be, super efficient at getting that information into the computer. I don't think it's going to be an issue putting the teams together.
Okay, Ms. Loescher, and then the last question is, if we did have to go fully remote and we went into yellow, are we prepared to teach live? I know that there was one piece that we weren't able to get, was the update on the devices. So if you wanted to just, you know, go ahead and just handle it so that we all got the information.
Yes, I mean, you know, listen, if we have to go fully remote, obviously that's not our desire. And I think we've been working together as a school community to try to keep the buildings open. And I think we've been successful. If we have to, the answer is yes. I mean, our teachers are prepared to go fully remote. In terms of the laptops, I'm glad you asked me to do this in public here. By the end of this week, we'll have about 10,000 laptops already pushed out to the community. So that's 10,000 that obviously I wish it was all done on the first week, first month of school in September. I think you've heard in the last few meetings how I've explained how there's been a delay in the delivery. But I do want to bring you all up to speed that we actually just got a small delivery in today of 440. But we also ordered another 6,200 laptops that are actually coming in as we speak, and they should be in before the end of December. That we're getting small shipments of those 6,200. So we're actually being prepared to push out even more laptops prior to December. So I'm real proud of the efforts of the IT department. Obviously, Stacy O'Connor has been a part of that. Candace Chang, they've ordered a tremendous amount. Her whole team has imaged all of these computers and hotspots and put them out. So again, we're up to about 10,000 laptops pushed out to the community. I do encourage you, again, to reach out to your schools, your principals first. If not, don't hesitate to call Central and we'll try to get you a laptop. But I hope to have them in everybody's hands, that additional 6,200, as soon as possible.
So, Ms. Lochner, I mean, do you have any sense of a date on that? I know that we spoke about that at our last meeting. It was a great find. It was something that we authorized while
Yes.
we were meeting. And so, do you have, Ms. O'Connor, I mean, or Mr. Lochner, if you have any sense of when that's happening?
Yes, Stacy, you want to tell them when should we expect the full delivery of 6,200? I know I spoke to you and Candace today, but
Yeah, they're starting to come in this week. So I would say by the end of the next week, we should have all 6,200 in. Then it does take some time to image them, get them ready to go out, send them out to the buildings. The buildings have to contact the students. But, we'll send them out as we image them. We're not going to wait until we finish all 6,200 and then start sending them out.
Mhm.
So over the next couple weeks, few weeks, you're going to see a lot of movement, obviously not have them all out by then because it takes time, but you'll see a lot of devices leaving Central to go to the buildings to be handed out to students.
Can you tell me, I mean, a rough estimate of what net number, if assuming that we do get to 6,200 by the end of next week, what number we're at as a total? Because I know that there were 2,400 or 2,200 that were coming in on a different date. I think that I wasn't sure if that was part of the total that Mr. Lochner had mentioned. But do you have a rough estimate at where that 6,200 or 60 something hundred laptop would take us?
Takes
think
us,
that-
yeah.
I think that would be about the 16,000 mark, or around that. And then, what we do anticipate, if students still need them after that, we do have laptops in the buildings that we were going to access. But remember, we still have other orders out there that we're waiting for delivery. But I believe that 6,200 should bring us between 15 and 16,000.
Yeah, I think you're right on with that. Plus, we're expecting the 1,100 additional machines next month, later this month, I should say, now that we're in December.
Right. They were going to be delivered in December sometime.
Mhm.
And I just, the reason why I bring it up is because, our promise to the community was that it was going to be a laptop per child. And I could really see us building on this in years to come, despite the crisis that we're in. I think that it really does set us up for a different model of learning into years forward. So I'm really excited once we get past this COVID crisis on how it is that we could expand, the learning experience for our students with, a device in each one of our students' hands.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Feliciano. And, it's something that I think the community should be very proud of, that we are actually going to be a one-to-one device community before the end of the school year, which is really quite remarkable from where we were to where we are right now. It's probably, obviously, there's not a lot of positives coming out of the pandemic, but this would certainly be one of them to point to.
Mr. Lochner, what about the teachers? Do they have all of the equipment that they need to be able to teach?
Yeah, it should be, it should be noted. I mean, obviously, many of the teachers or most of the teachers have a computer at home with a camera, but it doesn't. If we go fully remote, that is, the students go fully remote, that doesn't necessarily mean that the teachers will be teaching from home. Depending on the circumstances, I'm not making any, saying it has to be one way or has to be another, but depending on the circumstances, teachers may have to come into school and teach from school. When we did have the closure for the high school, that's actually what occurred. The teachers came into school and taught from there. My son, he's a music teacher out in South Country. They're actually on fully remote this week. He's actually going into school and teaching from school. So that's actually the way a lot of school districts are doing it. Their staff members come in. That's where your smart boards are. Obviously, our teachers are becoming incredibly competent at different technologies, and many times they're using the smart board to share screens with the kids at home. So I think a lot of staff members would prefer to come into school and teach remotely from there.
Are there any other questions from board members? I covered the community questions. With that being said, thank you so much, Mr. Loshner, for your thorough explanation of what it is, this yellow zone concept is. Thank you, Ms. O'Connor, for all of your work. I know that you're always like behind the scenes on every front, trying to keep this together for us. And we really do appreciate both of your efforts.
Thank you.
With that being said, I am going to then ask that we move on to the rest of the agenda. And for the community that's out there that's viewing this and still might have some questions about what was presented tonight, feel free, you're absolutely more than welcome always to send questions to the district clerk, and she will be able to forward them to the appropriate person so that we can continue to answer questions that might have come up even as this presentation was being made. So with that being said, I am going to go to the B items. It's page 1 of your agenda. And I just am going to remind all board members to please turn on their microphones as we vote on these items. So it's B2 items for action. B2A, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby suspends the order of business for this meeting and this meeting only according to policy 2350. I need a motion.
Motion.
Motion by trustee Moore. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Gonzalez Prescott. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. We are going to go to now page 2 of your agenda. D1A, approval for legal defense as proposed on the agenda. I need a motion.
Motion.
Motion by trustee Felix. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by trustee Safiri. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. And we are at the end of our meeting. I want to thank everybody for everything that they're doing. And I see a light at the end of this tunnel. We have a vaccine that's going to be coming around, to each one of us, each one of our states. And we just have to hang in there. So in the meantime, I hope that everybody is safe. And on behalf of the Board of Education, Ms. Loshner and Ms. O'Connor, and of course, everybody else on the screen, Ms. Hoey and Ms. Gomez, have a wonderful, wonderful night. And we hope to see you at our next meeting. Mr. Loshner, I see you waving your hand.
Could I just make 2 quick announcements? I apologize.
Sure, absolutely.
We do have something that we're real excited about. We have the tree lighting that has become a tradition here at Brentwood. I'm very proud of that tradition. It started in probably, I guess, about 4 or 5 years ago, I believe. And it's over at the high school. And I have to be honest with you, it's Rhonda Young and April Sinius there, and their whole team, their Christmas tree lighting team, have been working diligently at this, and they don't want to let this tradition pass. Obviously, I know many of you, if not all of you, have been there in years past. It's really a lot of fun. They unfortunately can't do it that way. However, they are having a drive-by tree lighting on December 11th. It's beginning at 6:30. It runs to 8 o'clock. And you're going to enter in the front of the high school on the Ross side, and you're going to travel, in your cars as you pass by the tree that's going to be lit. But as I understand that they put a great deal of effort into it, there'll be stations along the way manned by schools and clubs, I guess, with all kinds of decorations and other surprises for us. you know what? I'm really proud of this committee and all of the volunteers that will be out there that night, because they're determined to make this tradition carry on, and that's the way they're going to do it. That's December 11th. We also have another tradition that obviously is huge, and that's the Gary Mintz Pancake Run. And unfortunately, again, like, you know, I know everybody's been to that over the years. That's a tremendous event for us. We don't want to miss it this year. It's actually a virtual run, and it begins on December 6th and it runs to December 13th. And if you could please go to the website, sign up, and then you do you run, I guess, on your own. And you, I actually don't know after that. You run on your own, you submit something, I guess. And, you know, if you could sign up, it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm sure that they've done a tremendous effort on that too, with that too. That's Miss Costa, Jennifer Acosta, who's really terrific. She's the science department chair, and John Callan, the high school principal. They put a great deal of effort into this with their team. It's a virtual race. And I really encourage everybody to sign up. Here's the thing. It's actually much more than just a fun event. It was really been a fun event for lots of years, but it's also raises money for scholarships for our seniors. At the end of the year, we give out a tremendous amount of money to the seniors to wish them good luck as they enter the next phase in their life. We want to continue that. So it's a big fundraiser. And I would ask that if anybody is you know, anybody was a part of it in the past or would like to be a part of it now, please go to the website, click on the application, sign up, and follow the instructions. If you could, you know, just the application fee alone will help us with the scholarships for our kids.
Thank you very much for those reminders.
You don't have to run to donate, though. That's important also.
That's my favorite part. Yes, we don't have to run. Or we can fudge it a little bit. I'm going to say I'm running, but I probably not.
Mr. Lochner, is the event at the high school rain or shine?
That's a great question. As far as I know, I believe it is. We always did have a rain date. That's also on the website. If you go to UFSD.org, there's actually information about it. I actually read it before I came on tonight. I don't recall seeing a rain date, but I might have missed it.
All right. And you know what? And on behalf of the board, I want to thank, you know, all the staff, including, you know, teachers and administrators, you know, kitchen staff, TAs, monitors, nurses, B&G. I mean, what I get a sense is that everybody is still trying to pull together and doing what they could under these really, really difficult circumstances. So on behalf of the board, and I know that you've said it a million times, Mr. Lochner, you know, thank you to everyone, and just, you know, and we're gonna keep at it until, you know, it's better than ever.
Right.
So with that being said, I still need a.
Can I just make one other quick announcement?
Sure.
I'm sorry, Mr. Feliciano. But we had talked about this earlier in the year. It's an announcement from our food service department. We heard the community ask about our grab and go delivery of food, and we have it during the day. And some of the community members have said it's hard for them to get there. They're at work, what have you. So we did start our evening grab and go program last night. So we're doing it out of Sonderling, out of the high school, the Sonderling Senior Cafeteria. That's the one all the way at the end. If you go into the high school complex, make a left, it's all the way at the end. Kind of drive around the side a little bit and you'll see our food carts sitting there. We do that, rain or shine, without a doubt. So I think we did very well last night. On Tuesdays, we'll give out for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. And then we'll give out Fridays, also on Fridays for through Monday, so another 4 days on a Friday. So Tuesday evenings and Friday evenings, we start at 3:30, we go to 5:45. So please just drive up. You don't have to leave your car. We'll deliver, you know, the bags, the food right out to you. And we hope to see a lot more community participate in that opportunity.
So Ms. O'Connor, can you tell me who is allowed to be there? I don't know if you said it or I missed it. Who can go and participate in the grab and go?
It's part of what they're considering, believe it or not, the summer food service program. So any child 19 or under, normally in the summer, they say 18 or under, but they expanded that to 19-year-olds as well. So as long as we have the parent come for the child, that's fine. We don't have to actually see the child. So a parent can come and say, I have 3 kids at home, and they'll get meals for 3 children.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Mhm.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, so listen, so any other announcements? I mean, we almost missed all of these things, you know, it's just, is there anything else that needs to be said? No? All right,
I think so.
listen, have a great night on behalf of the Board of Education, and stay safe. So I need a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Motion.
Motion by trustee Burgos. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Trustee Safiri has a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you at our next meeting.
Good
Thank
night.
you all.
Bye.
Good night now.
Hi, everybody.
Good night now.